kids are thought of as like cool at the time.
Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 151st live stream from the Misfit Gamer Studios. I'm your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. On today's episode, we have another homebrew review submitted by DezmarSama. We have a new race with two sub-races of Golems. I'm really curious about this one. I have a couple ideas of my own for Golems in High Point, specifically modeled after the Apprentice Adept series. So I'm really curious to see how these go. Really also interested to see how other similar are. The only thing I know about this is they are considered constructs. So we're also going to look at similar constructs and see how they balance out, just to kind of make sure that we keep on balance. But otherwise, the only big announcement we have before we get started today, and I'll bring Kage in for this one, is next Sunday, the 26th, we are going to be doing an extra stream for everyone. So not quite the community stream.
Yes.
We kind of have an idea already that we want to do. But next Sunday, we're going to be streaming. It's going to be quite a long stream. It's going to be like at least a half-day stream.
Yeah.
And we have a special guest coming to
Very
to
cool.
the tavern with us. So we are going to have a
That's gonna be a
special
good
guest.
time.
And yeah, we're going to try this out. We're going to see how this works out with a third person to give this a try. We are going to be doing a couple different things, actually. we are going to be doing a whiskey tasting and then developing some cocktails at the end of that.
That's right.
So I'm really
That's
curious
right.
to see how that, because that way each of us will be able to, you know, either design or, you know, request a cocktail with the whiskey of their particular choice.
Sure.
And our special guest has never played Magic the Gathering before. And
That's
I've been
right.
meaning to
Very
go through all
cool.
of my cards. So I think after we do that, what will be a good opportunity is to possibly play a couple games with, you know, my very ancient old deck. And
Awesome.
After that, we can actually go through everything that I have, and we'll figure out what we want to do with them, whether I'm going to give them away, whether I want to try and sell them. Like, I don't know what's possible, but I also don't know what I have. So
True.
be worth going through, you know, seeing how many unopened booster packs I actually have, because I know I have a bunch. I just don't know exactly how many. So, you know, it'd be cool. I think it's going to be interesting. But yeah, so kind of like just a little pop-up surprise one. We had the opportunity to do it, and a friend of ours was able to join. So I want to keep trying out new things. I want to do more guest stuff, but you know, I'm definitely realizing that going a little bit slow, trying to figure out, you know, touch and go with, you know, adding one guest here and there, and
Yeah.
then potentially maybe doing two guests. Like,
See how you play it out.
I'd like to grow it, but you know, the more I watch and the more I get influenced by other creators, other streamers, other podcasters, I've noticed there's like a couple different camps they're all in. There's the highly controlled camp where, you know, everybody already kind of knows that there's going to be a process, and you kind
Yeah.
of just like, you know, you kind of agree to kind of follow along with it. There's the more like, I guess I would call it like the respect camp, where it's typically the host is well respected and usually chooses their people wisely.
Yes.
So there's
Very much
usually
so.
there's kind of like an unspoken rule. And then there's this other camp of just the highly edited camp, where they typically don't do it live, and they do just
Yeah. You only show
ton-
what you want to show.
yeah, they just do a crap ton of talking, and then they just cut out everything, right? And that's what I've noticed, especially with like the more people you have, the more you have to kind of dive into the edited camp,
Yeah.
because
It's hard.
at that point, having just that many people live without some kind of you know, like main structure, you know, without some kind of like script, or not even script, but without like an outline of, hey, these are like, this is how we're gonna roll it, these are the openings for talk, and these are like, you know, the situations. It's one of those, it gets very dicey the more people you add. So
It's hard for everyone to get an opportunity to talk. A lot of, you know, crosstalk and things. It's definitely a challenge. So I totally get that.
yeah, and then just pacing, you know,
Yeah.
you want everybody to have their opportunity, but you also have to be the host, and you know, like, you still have to progress the stream. Like, you have to be
Things
aware
have
that
to
there's
move
an
along.
audience.
Yes.
I mean, hell, we have a hard enough time with two of us.
100%.
You're gonna be upset if you can't use the golem race to grow crops. Why is that? Are you thinking of gnomes? Are you thinking of garden gnomes? Because I'm not quite sure why golems would be helping you grow crops. I mean, why not though? They are, you know, most of the time when I think of a golem, I think of more or less like semi-autonomous, like, you know, constructs. They're usually animated forms, and they're kind of just there to do simple tasks, to kind of just follow orders.
Okay. That's fair enough.
That's always just kind of, when I think of golems, I think more of the animated aspect, less than like a living you know, race, like
Right,
a living
right.
creature. I've always thought of them more as the
Yeah.
created
I'm
by
not
magic.
sure why, but the first thing that comes to mind is Golems from one of the adepts, the Apprentice Adept series, had like a bunch of golems.
Brown adept.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And again, that's kind of where I always take it. That's what kind of exists in High Point. Yeah, I you know, that's just kind of where my mind goes. So I don't really know what we're gonna expect here. In Delicious and Dungeon, there's a golem that someone is using to grow a farm on the back of.
Oh
Interesting.
yeah, I do remember that. Like this guy like cultivates them, and like every so often like he's able to like dispatch the golem and like harvest stuff off its back, and then it like comes back and then kind of maintains like, the ecosystem of the dungeon and things like that. It's a really interesting way to
I still
go
haven't
about
watched
it.
that one yet. Maybe I will get to that. Maybe I will get to that. You let Des know that it's his idea, right?
I did.
But we will give Des a little bit. It's not going to be a terribly long, from what I understand. So it's not going to be a very long review. We want to give Des a chance because, blink and you'll miss it potentially.
Right.
Oh, which is fine. I'm okay with the small one. I am absolutely wrecked after this weekend. Went up to for the same special guest that will be joining us next week. We went up to a bit of property that he owns and did some hiking on the backside of it. Started carving out off the side of the hill because it's a pretty steep hill all the way down to like some flat areas that he wants to get access to. So
Is this like basically like creating a trail or a road?
that's exactly what we were doing. Is we found the best place that we could traverse like along the hill, and we just literally started digging out like a pathway and a walkway. So we were able to get like the first like 25 feet or so, I would say. Pretty good amount for like an hour and a half of work. But then we scouted out the rest. And then once we got like where it was going to start, because we just wanted to get the starting position, we then actually walked the rest of the way and actually kind of like scouted out and try to figure out exactly what the safest route would be for both us to build it and also people to walk it and actually keep it, upkeep it. Because there was a lot of areas that looked fine, but over time it would just erode away.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
pathing is an issue, but it was a lot of fun. Got to stay out there. It's always nice out there because there's nothing. There's no water, no power. So it's basically just we basically just go camping out there, just take out the hammocks and all of our gear. But whenever we go to the property, since the truck's right there, it's one of the few times we get to what we call glam. And that's mainly like, it's funny because we don't really take anything different other than just more cooking equipment. When
Fair
we
enough.
like legit our version, I know most people when they think of like glamping is like the inflatable mattresses and like big old pop-up tent and all of
TVs
this.
your PlayStation and all the
Our
things.
glamping is literally we got to bring the burner stove and a couple extra
That's still
cast
pretty
iron
sick, though.
pots. You know what I mean? Because we always end up doing crazy food while we're out on the trail. We'll make some
That's
crazy
what's
meals.
up. That's the way to go. I'm telling you.
But they all have to be portable and they all have to be easily cooked in our small tins. So when we get to consider ourselves glamping, it's like being able to bring the 2-burner stove and an ice chest is glamping to us, because the amount of food, like the elevated food level for us is what we care about, right? Like the stuff we normally backpack with is fine for us to camp, even comfortable. Like we both enjoy that. So
Sure.
I don't really want a tent that takes me an hour to set up, even if it's more comfy. Like I'll take my hammock any day.
Exactly. Especially if you got the weather that's nice enough for it.
Right, but being able to have the food, bring up beer, have some like comforts and some amenities. That's where it's at.
For sure.
That's my glamping.
No doubt. I'm here for it.
But it was good. Came back today, just around. What time did we get back? We got back around 1 o'clock, maybe.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's not too long ago.
So yeah, came back and then just trying to chill and relax. But I am beat. I am tired. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna barely have enough energy for this review.
I did more than I expected to. Like when you have like an anticipation of being able to do like a whole lot of nothing and just relax. And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
I gotta do a little bit more than that. It's fine. It's mostly my fault because I always forget what's happening. I never look at my calendar in time. I kind of wait for it to like show up and then be like, let me check at the last second. But yeah, no, I
Fucking with me today too. Like I was fine all day at the property. Literally within the hour of us like packing up to leave, my allergies kicked in. And I'm just like still dealing with them.
God bless America. It's always the funnest.
But I checked. I'm checking Discord. I see Dez is is playing Baldur's Gate 3, so they got D&D on the mind.
They're thinking about something.
I'll give them like 5 more minutes.
Okay? Because when I pinged them earlier, it said they were doing Baldur's Gate, but it looked like they were away.
Yeah, so they're on, they're active, so they saw the ping. So if they're not here at like the half-hour mark, we'll just start and we'll see how far it takes.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm really curious what this is going to give us, because a golem as a race, depending upon if we get any lore from this, I could see a couple different ways of this go. You know, I'm glad that there are sub races to this, because I could see golem going in a couple different directions, and I like the idea of using sub races to see all of those through.
Yeah,
you know, so I'm really curious which way Des will go with it. I have a couple key abilities that I would like to see already in my mind, so I'm just gonna reserve those and wait to see if we see them, or I'll use those as my suggestions.
Okay.
But yeah, I outside of that, I don't know. I think my perception of golems is very skewed, so I really don't know what the average, like, because I don't even know what if golems are referenced in D&D, like normally.
I will say there are definitely creatures that are golems in D&D. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that they are also considered constructs. Let me just look at a clay golem.
And that's actually great. If there are a couple of golems, we should keep that up along with like a warforge, so we can kind of do a side-by-side comparison with other types of constructs. Because I really want to see, like, again, I really want to understand what D&D has for these.
Definitely. But yeah, so like they definitely have different golems, and they have different damage immunities. You know, they have different features and abilities that are different than a lot of other ones. So I'll be interested to see what kind of like inspiration is taken from the creatures versus other constructs and races, and see what you can come up with combine there. So interesting, very interesting. I want to know what the lore is behind these things.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get much. I'm trying to remember if Des is big on lore or not.
Oh, okay.
I know Cosmic's huge on lore. Sol and Hecate tend to give us pretty good lore.
Hecate definitely.
But I don't remember if Des does lore much, or if it's more about the mechanics. I wouldn't be a bad stream name. Des does lore. All right, we're coming down to the wire here. We got the last like couple seconds. Des doesn't show up. It's gonna be on them to rewatch it.
That's all right. They'll
if they do, welcome.
I'm actually curious, real quick, which one this is for them.
Oh yeah.
If
we'll have to get their average
got
ready.
A lot of other submissions under the belt. I know we've done at least a couple of them.
I wonder, now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if it would be worth, you know how when you post after we review it, you post in Discord, it does the post about, hey, your item just got this score. I wonder if it would be worth it
to include their average.
Yeah, to just say, hey, your item XYZ just got blank out of 10, bringing your average to blank out of 10.
Got you.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm just curious if it would work that way, where if you would think like, hey, so it says exactly how it or it reads exactly how it does now, but just tack on bringing your average to.
Got you.
I don't know if that would be easy or not, or if it would be worth it.
I know everyone likes their average. Easy enough to do. Definitely easy enough for me to do. This is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the sixth submission, or no, I'm sorry, the seventh submission from Des, but only the second race. Ooh, no, this is the first race we've actually gotten from Des.
Right.
No, I'm sorry, second. We did the Hydraborn. That was with the. Remember when we had the one with the longer deck and you could use a reaction from 10 feet away?
I did like that one.
Yes.
I did like that one.
That one got an 8 out of 10.
So if you want a meaningful response, I would highly suggest posting it in Discord, and I can get to it later after I sleep, or we will try to get to it after the review if I remember to. Just giving you a fair warning.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, we've given Des a half hour, and we pinged them. Too bad.
So sad.
All right, well, let's get to this. Shouldn't take very long. It won't take too much out.
Got this.
All right, here we go. So, beginning our short review today, a new race of golems from DezmarSama, and there should be 2 sub-races to go along with this. So, with these races, so again, no lore so far. With these races, you get ability scores. You get to choose one of A, choose any +2, choose any +2, choose any other +1, or B, choose 3 +1s. I think that's pretty standard for most anything.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that's normal, but are there races that would sometimes select what a mandatory
lot
one?
of the standard races are going to select those for you. It's more common now for people to be able to choose pretty much whatever. Sometimes they'll give you one primary and then let you choose one extra one. With human race, you just get to choose any 3.
So what I would like to do in this particular case, because again, I understand the idea of wanting to give more player agency and more choice in your build, but at the same time, I do kind of also understand that certain races should lean certain ways.
Yes.
So here's what I would like to see it do. Personally, what I would like to see is I don't mind how it offers the do a +2 +1 or 3 +1s.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would like to start seeing these have, and not just this one, but just in general, the format be choose +2 +1 or any +3, and then at the end of it say, like in the case for a golem, strength or constitution must be at least one of your choices.
I kind of like that,
because at least that way, if I don't want to lean into one, like again, if you choose golem and it's always a +2 in strength and a +1 in con,
sure,
and you're like, I'm not really going to use it for strength, I totally get that. But if the lore and the mechanics kind of deem it that, but this race is strong, like it doesn't matter if you're going to use it, we have to represent that it has strength.
Yeah.
If you say choose a +2 +1 or any +3, but you say you must choose at least strength or con as one of your choices,
right,
then you still have, the other options that will be more specific to your.
Yeah.
So because that's how I
that.
think this one would be perfect for, is strength or constitution is kind of what I would expect from a golem. And again,
agreed,
not being forced to take the +2 in any particular one, but just being told, hey, these are 2 stats, you have to have one of them. You have to
and
boost.
even if you choose it as the 1, or if you choose it as the 2, like, hey, I really want a high constitution, boom, there you go, you got your 2. Hey, I really want a high strength, boom.
And if you don't want either of those, you take the 1 in one of them,
and then you get your primary to be whatever you want.
And yes, you might say that that might be a burn, but at the same time, strength and strength might be a crap one, but constitution's never a bad stand.
It's always good. It gives you HP no matter who you are.
And that's why I think it would be
HP.
justifiable to say, like, a golem who's hardier, it either comes out as strength or con or both, right?
Sure.
And so that's how I would love to see this new format. I would love to see us, maybe that would be something that we add to the ADMG, is this kind of format when we talk about, like, how we talked about doing like new formats for how we do races. Maybe this is something that we add into it where the ability scores are always choosable, but you're just dedicated to having to choose at least one base one, regardless of where you put it. Might be an idea to think about.
Okay.
But otherwise, yeah, I would say, again, not too bad, but again, I would expect strength and constitution. But this does make it a very approachable and very usable. Versatile is the word I was looking for.
For sure.
All right, so size is medium. Now this is interesting. Normally I interpret golems as being like large. Like,
I would
personally,
agree too.
I always imagine them being these like hulking, just giant, just.
I will say, I feel like you could create a golem to be whatever size you wanted to. But generally speaking, they are, like, even the one in the Delicious and Dungeon, they're a massive golem. Large or even huge possibly.
What's going on, Red Lego? Yeah, so I would argue that there's definitely a hard argument for making this a large creature instead of instead of just medium. I mean, I get medium makes it a little bit easier for roleplay purposes, but I mean, let's face it, you know,
It does, but like even we just reviewed the other day the what was it, the hippo race, and that one was size large, and I think that the way they did that was worked really really well, and I think you can do something like that here if you wanted to.
I agree. So yeah, I would argue that size should have been large here. Creature type, you are a construct. I find that interesting. Definitely don't know a lot about constructs, especially in 5th edition. So I'll like to know some side by sides as we go. So we have 2 sizes. We accidentally your size is medium. Your size is medium.
Oh, did I put it in twice? Oh,
Yeah.
rip.
So
That's on me.
speed is 30. Now this is one of those cases where I don't mind it having the standard speed, like really don't.
Mhm.
But even if you went large, I wouldn't mind it having the standard speed. But I also wouldn't necessarily dislike it if it were at 25.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think 30 is fine, especially because it makes it more accessible. But you know, I could see someone suggesting 25. We have a golem race. Yes, we do, with hopefully 2 sub races behind it. And then let's see. So immutable form. You are immune to any spell or effect that would alter your form against your will.
Oh,
I kind of like that.
I feel like that is, yes, that is something that comes straight from.
Oh, is that just normal construct?
Not construct, but golem in the creature. So like the clay golem in the monster manual, they have the exact same thing, immutable form.
Gotcha. I
Golem's
like that.
immune to-
I do like that for it. I wouldn't. Part of me. I mean, almost part of me wouldn't even mind going so far as like it's just impossible. Almost just like even if you wanted to, it's just you just can't.
You can't.
Like be changed. You can't be altered. It would be interesting. I'm not saying that it needs it, but
I would almost say, because when you think about golems, like they were created in a specific form. So I would think that theoretically it's possible to form/mold them. But and I understand the idea why the creatures here are like this, because they have a creator that created them, and you know their magic holds them together in X,
Right.
Y, and Z form. So depending on the lore here, I wouldn't mind, because a lot of races have like advantage against being charmed or advantage against being. I wouldn't mind advantage on saving throws to change your form, and maybe later full on immunity, like you just can't do.
well,
it.
no. I mean, I'm talking about like this is so no one else can change you. I'm talking about even going one step further and even suggesting that if
You can't even
golems
change
can't,
yourself.
yeah, golems can't change, can't be changed.
So even
can't-
if you're a druid and you learn polymorph, you just can't use it on yourself.
if you were a golem, like
Interesting.
I'm thinking, like again, I'm not saying that's what it should be, but I could play around with that idea as like, because like you said, they're usually created, and my mindset is, yeah, they're usually molded before the fact, before animation, and it's that animation that if you were to change it, it wouldn't work.
Right.
Like literally a golem created as a humanoid, if you change it into an animal, it can't function because it's
interesting.
so that's why I'm thinking like the idea that you can't change it because
So
it
you
doesn't
could use
work.
something like disguise self, because that's an illusion and you're not actually changing your form, but you wouldn't be able to use something like polymorph or
Bark
even wild
skin.
shape, theoretically.
like bark skin, graft weapon, like all of these
bark
things,
skin wouldn't even work.
because all of these technically transmute and change your body. That's what I'm thinking. Like, so there's some.
Interesting.
It's not like it's a better idea. I'm fine with immutable form as it is. I think it's really good for golems. It's just one of those. I could see someone playing with this for like lore purposes and setting purposes,
Sure.
and elevating what
Being a
that
little bit
actually
more
means.
aggressive with this list of limitation.
Yeah, I like that. All right, Sentry's Rest. When you take a long rest, you must spend at least 6 hours in an inactive, motionless state, rather than sleeping. So it's instead of 8 hours, your long rest is 6 hours.
Correct.
And then in this state, you appear inert, but it doesn't render you unconscious. You can see and hear as normal. I'm assuming that means as normal.
Okay.
Just says as no. So I'm
gotcha,
assuming that
gotcha.
just says as normal.
I agree. agree.
So this is the weird one, right? Because it doesn't, like, again, I'm a stickler for things like this, right? Like it doesn't really give me enough to understand where the recharge is coming from.
True.
And I'm kind of like, I don't mind the lower shutdown time, but the idea that you're in it, like you have to be inactive, motionless, but you're fully conscious and aware, and you can hear and see. So it's like, it's kind of like a different version of meditating.
I will say this is taken straight from Warforged. Warforged has
Okay, so
exactly a thing
we're
called Century's Rest that works the same way.
Interesting. Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I feel like there's just an oddity here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I
get what you're saying. I do get what you're saying. Like, how are you actually recharging? Like, is it just something like inside of you? Like you're on like low power mode or something like that? Like,
well, then not just that, the awareness part, right? Like, 'cause I'm trying to balance out where it's like you get less rest, but you're also a perfect guard because you don't have to sleep. So it's like all you have to do is not move. But you don't. I'm trying to balance out that idea that you literally can't be snuck up on when you're sleeping.
Give like disadvantage on perception checks, you know, because unless your head is like literally on a swivel, you are sitting motionless, looking in one direction. You know what I'm saying? So unless you're like in the corner of the room and you have everything in your purview, you're not going to be able to like look and scan appropriately.
Like, and is there any, you know, what happens when you do see something and you're interrupted? Because this says you have to have 6 hours. So what happens if there is an intruder in the camp and you wake up to stop them?
I would look at it the same way. I would look at it the same way as if somebody on watch, you guys got attacked and you woke up your buddy. Like they would not have a full rest. You also would not have a full rest, you know, type deal.
Yeah.
So,
interesting. So yeah, not saying that it's bad for this. It's just okay. So that comes. So we are getting a Golem Warforged combo here, which I don't necessarily disagree with. I think I would have done Century's Rest a little differently, but that seems to be, you know, in a disagreement with the core rule.
Sure. But I mean, it again, the core rule book, that's with Warforged specifically. So, you know, I always think that there's room for flexibility when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah. And then we get powerful build. You count as one size larger when determining your carrying capacity and the weight you can push, drag, or lift. I'm fine with that.
That is also something that's taken from probably several other races, but the one I'm most familiar with is Goliaths.
Gotcha.
Goliaths count as one size larger for determining how much they can carry and stuff like that. And that does kind of lead to normally there's like under size, it'll say whether like how much somebody weighs or how tall a creature of this type would normally be. So when it comes to like Goliaths, they're traditionally like 7 to 8 feet tall. They're like on the larger size of medium. And so this kind of lends me to believe that these golems are on the larger side of medium. Which kind of to Soul's point, like would be more of an inclination for us to go down to that 25 movement speed.
Yeah.
Because these are more lumbering type creatures.
And that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, go up to large. That makes sense. So before we get to the sub races, there is something here that I've always felt like, again, instinctually when I think of golems, there is a very particular aspect of them that I've always assumed is kind of universal. Because they are constructs. And they're usually made out of clay, wood, stone, what have you. So even though it may be in the sub races, what I would like to have seen in this one, I don't mind Century's Rest. I don't mind powerful build. I don't mind immutable form. And that might be enough for the base race. Mm-hmm. But what I would like to see on this is, I forget what the actual ability or whatever it's called, but similar to what we did with Shazam. I forget what we dipped into, but the ability not to have to breathe, eat.
Yeah.
Because it still has to sleep. But whatever that thing was that we added, I remember we added it to Shazam.
Yeah.
But I really feel like that should have also been tacked on to golems, because for me, that's always been a big deal for the idea that they don't breathe. So their stamina is infinite. The idea that they just can run and not stop.
That is also included in Warforged. it says you don't eat, drink, or breathe. You don't need to eat, drink, or breathe, and you're immune to disease because
So
your body doesn't get affected.
I would have
the same
liked
way
to
that-
see that added here as well, just
Sure.
because, again, that's something that to me has always been intricate to a golem. Is it's literally a lifeless thing brought to animation. So the idea of breathing, eating, these are things that it shouldn't need.
Right.
And again, it hints at the idea that it has infinite stamina. It's never going to run out of breath. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
If it's running after you, it's never going to stop. So
What do I think of like the T1000 just freaking chucking it at
Exactly.
you, like going nuts?
So I wouldn't, and that could also, you could also justify that with the lower speed if you wanted to balance that out.
For sure.
So yeah, so that's the only thing so far I feel like it's missing is, with the ability scores, I wouldn't mind it nodding to at least having to have strength or constitution as one of your choices, and being able to not eat breathe. I think are the two.
Yeah, I'm here for that too. Very much so.
All right, so
Oh, I will say there's another piece. So you have your different versions. You have Century's Rest, but specifically in Warforged, it says you don't need to sleep and magic can't put you to sleep. So I don't know if that would be something
interesting.
because theoretically, like the sleep spell, right? Sleep spell gonna work on a creature that doesn't actually sleep.
Right, because
You know
yeah,
what I mean? And
I
like,
don't think it would just I don't think it would just activate its inert mode. That wouldn't
exactly.
make any sense.
Exactly. And even in its inert mode, you're not theoretically unconscious. You're not theoretically, they still are able to do whatever it is that they need to do. So what would it force you to be like? Would it force you to not be aware or whatever the case may be? So I don't know.
Oh, it would be kind of cool. This is probably, again, making things too complicated, but making them more fun to use. What if Sentry's Rest said that while in Sentry's Rest, you can only take reactions, or you can only take while in Sentry's Rest, you can take an action to come out of Sentry's Rest. Basically like power back on.
Sure.
Or otherwise, you can only take reactions. So the idea being almost like, something like sneaks up, you look inert. So you can just do the whole I play dead thing. But if it tries to strike you, maybe you could like block or defend or move.
Okay.
So it's like you can't do anything normally, but you can do like anything that would be considered a reaction.
Okay.
Even like an opportunity attack. Like they're in your area and then they try to go walk away from you, and then you could just
like slash.
and then they look back and you just look inert.
For me, I would say staying looking inert after you just attack them would be like some sort of check. 'Cause you like just swung at them, and if they turn around right away,
Yeah.
but I do think that should at least be something that's possible.
Would be kind of cool, just the idea that it takes a whole action to get out, but you can take small little actions. Because again, it's like you're low power, so you can do stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe talk, maybe make a noise. Something like that. I think would be kind of interesting. All right, so sub races. Excuse me. We have of wood and stone. Familiar form. You have proficiency in the nature skill.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Interesting. Okay.
It's always bothered me that nature is. This is just a gripe that I have with 5th edition and their skills, but it bothers me that nature is solely an intelligence-based skill.
Yeah.
I think that should at least be able to, depending upon your character, choose whether it's intelligence or wisdom-based, right?
I 100% agree on that one.
But I do like nature for wood and stone. You are of nature, and so it makes sense that you're slightly more in tune with that.
Okay. So you get innate spell casting. The druid craft cantrip, forest through the trees. What's the druid craft?
Druid craft
Is that
is
where you just grow
basically
stuff?
like prestidigitation for druids. You can like make little flowers grow. You can create little puffs of scent. You can create little like
Gotcha.
firefly kind of symbols. It's nothing crazy, but
And then forest through the trees. I'm assuming, is that just...
that might be. I might have set that up wrong. That might be an additional skill. So it should have its own bold point. So force through the trees, and then that's another ability that you can use trees right there.
And then so forest through the trees. Oh, so forest through the trees, you can attempt to hide with advantage even when you are only lightly obscured by foliage, heavy rain, falling snow, mist, and other natural phenomena.
So that's another skill set that is taken from wood elves. So
Okay,
wood elves
I
have
don't
the
mind that
ability
one.
to hide when only lightly obscured. But this is cool because it's like specifically like nature based. Like it's like
I would have liked to see speak with plants as a
Okay.
because if you're gonna get druid craft cantrip, you should also get the druid spell speak with plants like once per day.
I totally like that for innate spell casting. Actually, I'm curious because sometimes maybe not. Maybe it's too high of level spell. Like sometimes you'll get like higher level spells too. You can get like a first level spell, and then later you'll get like a second or third level spell.
I feel like that one's just
meld into
like
stone would be cool.
oh yeah.
That would be cool. But again, I don't know exactly what level that
It might be too
spell
much
is.
to give that to a race as well, but I do kind of like the
Yeah.
idea of just like it would have been nice if you chose this to like as or just say that of wood and stone, familiar form, you have proficiency in the nature skill, and one of your languages is equal to like speak with plants, or so basically say that you could speak with plants as if it were a language.
So druidic is a language that only druids get, and you could lightweight. There is an element of druidic where you can like, it's not like you're literally conversing with them, but if you've ever seen Emperor's New Groove and you see that guy talking to the chipmunks, like you can kind of get the vibe of what they're trying to communicate.
So
to you.
it's generalizations, not conversations.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's like, hey, were there bad guys over there? And like, you know, like whatever the case may be. So
Obviously, I think this is implied, but I also hope that this would infer that your golem, because okay, so here's another thing that we didn't choose. What I would really have liked this to have said either earlier or right before this is, you know, when selecting this race, select the form that your body takes, and then it should have a choice of like wood, stone, and then whatever else the other options are going to be, because then you could say, you know, like I would like that to have a meaning, right? If you're made of wood or made of stone, I'd like that to have tangible in-game meaning.
Interesting.
So because this
like,
one's like, you know, of wood and stone, but it's like, am I wood and stone? What if I'm all marble? Am I just made out of a tree? Like, I'm just curious. It's like, for me, that kind of stuff matters.
Okay.
So I really would like to see that. And I wouldn't even mind, again, like, you know, wood has, you know, maybe like wood is vulnerable to fire, but has a resistance to something else. Stone, resistance to fire, but is vulnerable to,
Sure.
you
Maybe
know,
have resistance to bludgeoning damage. No. Yeah, because I feel like stone would be more vulnerable to bludgeoning damage, and wood would be, you know, more resistant to it. And while wood would probably be more vulnerable to slashing damage, or like you said, fire damage.
yeah.
And stone would probably be super resistant to that.
You can hear a C is no. Sounds like some poetry hipster stuff. Yeah. Sometimes the translations don't always come over. So yeah, so I would just like to see some sort of like indication that you do have to select what you're made out of.
Right.
All right, and then we have of bone. So this is the other one. So it's of wood and stone and of bone. I feel like there could be more. I feel like we could have had options here.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like
Maybe some clay, maybe some.
Yeah, we could have probably expanded upon this just a little. Let's go to bone. So ghastly appearance, proficiency in intimidation.
Okay.
I kind of like that.
Very cool.
Innate spell casting. You know, they spare the dying cantrip.
Interesting. Bet.
That's interesting. Okay. Detachable limbs. As a bonus action, you can remove You can remove one of your arms that can function as a magical simple weapon. It deals 1d4 plus your strength modifier. You can reattach your arm as a bonus action. While using this feature, you are unable to perform any action that requires 2 sets of hands to your arms. So it's a magical weapon. That's interesting that it's automatically a magical weapon. So that's a magical weapon at level 1.
That is very fair. That is very
Now,
fair.
granted, it doesn't do a lot of damage, so all it's doing is overcoming magical weapon resistance.
Sure. And there are other things that can get you that early on, get you things that overcome those resistances early on. But still, that's pretty handy. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I will
don't
say,
dislike it.
I'm trying to see how well I feel like that's equivalent. equivalently balanced with the other one.
I mean, the other one has the druid craft cantrip, which is much more RP based, and you basically can hide, easier. This one you can keep your buddies up from dying, but you have your own low damage magic weapon. It's basically, I mean, really, it's turning your arm into a magical dagger. That's really all it is. It's a magical dagger.
Yeah.
That's not that bad.
It's not crazy. Yeah.
If that's all you do, that's not that bad. All right. So with that, I don't mind up here. Everything up here is fine. I'd still think that the no breathing or eating would be a good choice. Honestly, wood and stone could be separate. We could have done like a split from.
Oh, one for wood, one for stone.
Yeah, I think we could have been fine there.
Okay.
I really like, yeah. So the proficiency in the nature skill, the druid craft, and forest through the trees, those are all fine. I still kind of like speak with plants better though.
I wouldn't mind adding that, to be honest. Like getting a cantrip and having a leveled spell, I'm not mad at that, especially with the balance of having the other one be magical, speak with plants, especially because, again, like you said, it's a little bit more RP based, right? So it's not necessarily going to be overpowered or anything crazy like that. I don't mind that at all.
So I'm really curious for if we have like the druid craft and we gave them speak with plants, what would be an equivalent if we have spare the dying as a cantrip? What would be equivalent of a good leveled spell for a bone based golem?
To be honest, my first instinct is inflict wounds, but inflict wounds is one of the, from my perspective, greatest first level spells, and getting that does like what, 3d10 damage out the gate.
It's too nice.
Now theoretically, you're just giving them both. You're only going to have the ability to cast these, generally speaking, when it comes to races. When it comes to first level spells, you only get to use them once per long rest without a spell slot.
Yeah,
because theoretically you don't have to be a caster class to use these. So if that's the case, if you don't have to be a caster class, then you're not going to have spell slots, so you just get one free use of these a day. Everything else, you're still using your regular spell slots to do so. So it's mostly access to a spell that you wouldn't normally have on your spell list.
So then in that case, because one seems to be more RP based and one's more combat based, what if you gave of bone with spare the dying cantrip? What if you gave them mage armor? I think mage armor is a compatible spell level.
It is a first level spell. I like mage armor a lot
because all it does is it benefits itself, and all it's getting is a weapon and a little bit of armor.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is getting,
I would say, again, the only reason I mentioned inflict wounds is because I feel like it fits the theme. Like you're talking about of bone, like giving it some necrotic damage. So when it comes to mage armor, I'm trying to put together, how does this feel like it fits with being of bone, being able to give yourself this protective barrier?
I'm thinking just because like the bone itself like is just more like armor, just kind of like if you're made of bone, it's almost like shifting your like the bones itself, because I'm thinking you're actually crafted out of a bunch of different bones, not necessarily in the right spot.
Sure.
So being able to like shift what you have.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know, I'm just trying to think of like,
I could get behind that.
I like the idea of adding another leveled spell though, just to help these feel more well-rounded.
Yeah,
because I mean, again, if you split wood and stone, you'd be able to have with stone you could either have like a digging proficiency, like a burrowing like proficiency, or I'm trying to think of like
right.
Like one gets intimidation, the other one gets nature. What would like you're more like stone golem again from this thing. But I guess we already have, there's probably already a stone golem specifically. That's I guess the downside. This one's more like nature golem versus bone golem.
I mean, there's already like clay golems and all kinds of stuff, but I mean, as a race, I think that having a stone and a wood golem is not a bad idea. I would almost say something like when it comes to like pushing you over, like going prone or something, like you would have
Ooh.
like the ability to resist that or something like that. You're just a little bit more sturdier because you're made out of stone. Um,
Right. Okay.
that's
I
my
kind of like
initial
that.
thought when it comes to that. But
I like that. Yeah. I think there's yeah. I think that there's a lot to be said for being able to spread this out. I think that there's a lot more here that we can get.
for sure,
But overall,
agreed.
overall in general, I do like them. I would add like a little bit more to them. They're pretty close to what I would expect a golem to be, but what am I trying to say? They're really close, but I feel like they're just wanting. You know what I mean? I feel like
Sure.
for a race, it's not
You want a little bit more meat.
it's not that I need it to do a whole lot more. It's just they're found wanting in the way that they don't tell enough of a story by themselves. If
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
chose this, if I'm going through character creation to say, okay, first choice race, and I see that this is what I can do, I don't know anything about this race.
So that's one of the things I was going to ask you. Just now that we've read everything from top to bottom, if you were to attach some lore, mostly because we don't have Des here to answer this for us, but if you were to add some lore to this, if you were to say where you believe this came from, would you go the route of this race of creatures was created and like given sentience by like some wizard or something like that? Or would you say that this somehow they found a way to like evolve and replicate and like create themselves to continue on their race? Or like how would you envision these continued uh uh
So,
creatures being out here?
so in High Point, the most two obvious ways would be either something to do with the anomaly, due to the Brown Adept, or
Sure.
more likely it would be divine intervention, something on that massive scale. Something like maybe at one of the Great Wars, um, in order to help balance the power, all of the constructs that were made to fight, because each army was amassing as many as they could. I mean, whole forests were devastated just to make it.
Sure.
Um,
Reminds me of Lord of
so
the Rings.
I could easily see a situation where at the end of one of the wars, in order to help, especially like with the mages, to help spread to help spread out the power, because again, all of even those golems were alive, that power was still there that could be reabsorbed by the creator, right?
Right.
So I could easily see it to where, like for High Point, it would be a situation that the gods basically said, okay, not only are we, like that, not only does the power, or not even the gods, but like a god or a very powerful wizard to help spread all the power out and even out the playing field, basically casting either a spell or again divine intervention to sever the connections of all of the
And
golems,
give the power to the golems themselves. to
and
control.
basically create, just say you are now your individual selves, like you are. So if you want to keep fighting, you can, but guess what, big bad evil wizard, you have to now convince 200,000 golems individually to continue to fight for you, right?
So would you say then in a scenario like that, like they're almost like at risk of going extinct because there was a finite number of them when that occurred, and so they're very, very rare. And so like if
I
you have
would
a
say
PC
so.
that wants to be one, it's like, hey,
I would say it would not only be rare, but then again, depending on the backstory, I'm sure that there are some that were able to, either through assistance or through, dumb luck or nature, were able to find ways to reproduce. So, whether that's continuing to do some sort of ritual,
sure.
maybe, obviously not the standard way. So I would say that, yeah, for my particular case, it would have to be something along the lines of that, where there was a need to sever the connection. But otherwise, for most people, what I would say is, again, if you
Imagine
don't
what if
think
these
of-
guys decided to become a lich.
right?
They
Well-
just keep reincarnating in different bodies.
And then you could just say that innately an individual golem doesn't have the ability to do so. But together, either two or more can come together, and when linked up, because they're like a construct, when linked in a certain way, they can create another construct. Almost like let's say if there's 10 together and they, insert, they link hands or whatever around
Sure.
a new vessel, they can craft a new construct. So
now, would
that's,
that be like at the sacrifice of themselves?
or just no, just it's
Or
more
just-
it's more like they don't individually have the spell to craft a new construct like they were,
Mhm.
but 10 of them all have a piece of it.
And they can share it. Oh, okay. I
So
see
it's
what
like
you're
when
saying.
they make the
Yeah, yeah,
link,
yeah.
it's literally like a program to where all 10 constructs link, and then the thing in the middle gets the code, and that's how the new because again, you think about constructs are originally, you know, crafted, like you said, they all had an owner.
Yes.
So imagine again, as part of that, in order for constructs to still live and be creatures, they had to be given a way to reproduce. So what if their way to reproduce is they could literally craft a child, and it takes a certain number of them to link, and that is enough of energy and enough of the code, or enough of the magic spell
Right.
to infuse a new one with
No,
a
I
little
get
bit of
that.
each of their intelligence to create a new personality.
Okay.
And therefore you could easily create a way where yes, some would have died off, or you could have these ones that are just, you know, descendants. They're again, and the idea that it's part of each of their code to have to like share to the new personality, so they're technically true descendants of other constructs from
That would be very cool. Almost like lightweight, like the Avatar, where you get like a little piece of all the previous avatars, like in your mind, a little bit of their history, a little bit of their past.
right.
No, that's kind of cool.
I mean, it's either that, or you could look at it as more of like every time one reproduces, like they can choose to reproduce only once in their life. But when they do, it's like a Deadpool situation. So it's another copy of you, but a scrambled copy. So it's you, but not you.
Oh,
So
interesting.
imagine, you know, like Deadpool, like when you met all the versions of Deadpool.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, it's just like that, where it's like once in your life, you're given at a certain maturity age, you're given the ability to create another construct. And it's basically a completely altered version of you. So you have to choose
Wild.
if you're okay with that.
Wild. Okay.
So yeah, so
I'm behind this.
so overall, I think this is approachable to most people. I would still like a little bit more to work with as a DM, like a little bit of lore to work with, a little bit of understanding of behind this. As for a race, I don't think they're lacking in terms of what a race would normally give you, but I think they're lacking in the sense of it doesn't really tell me a whole lot about, like, if I really, really specifically wanted these features, sure, right? If I wanted to start with Spare the Dying right out the gate and be able to have a plus, you know, basically a magical dagger, I get why I would choose a bone. But realistically, Druidcraft and Nature Skill and Forest of the Trees, I'm not entirely sold that I would be allured to that race for any other particular reason. Because I mean, again, there's I'm not, other than being a construct, there's, unless I know, like, again, unless the setting or the campaign we're running, there's a high chance of like polymorphing and stuff. I could do this, like you said, with the Warforged.
Yes.
So I'm not 100% sure what I'm being sold on in terms of what's coming out of being a golem, which is why I'm thinking the No Eater drinking would be a good add-on. I know that's still with the Warforged, but that's where I want to see a little bit more in the sub races of being like, let me really embody what I'm creating.
Right.
You know what I
do
mean?
like that.
Like, yeah, there's a lot of weird and interesting things that I would do with this. Like for instance, if someone wanted to be a wood golem in High Point, I might allow them to have something to where, you know, like they're like, hey, I'm made of wood, right? Like you were saying, like it's gonna be hard to slash damage, right? Or, you know, like chopping me is the best way, but like piercing is just gonna stick in me. It's not really gonna hurt me.
Yeah.
And bludgeoning is just gonna bounce off, right? But I could also imagine to where they could have an extra skill where, let's say an enemy crit fails on their attack, like with a sword. You know, maybe I would allow them to have an ability, or they could use a reaction, or just in general, what happens if someone crit fails when melee attacking them is that their weapon gets stuck like in their arm.
Oh,
Like they go up to
interesting.
block and it's like the thing goes into the wood,
I kind of like that.
and then they can just basically disarm them. So it's like I basically give them, like, as a wood golem, if anyone crit fails while melee attacking,
you have a
you-
reaction to like.
if you have a reaction
try and
left,
disarm
you
them.
can disarm them, because we'll say that they get it stuck in your leg, they get it stuck in your arm, and then as you move, you rip it out of their hands.
Interesting.
So it's like those are the things I think of is when I think of, if I'm gonna be a golem, let what I'm made of matter.
Right.
You know what I mean? if I'm a tree, I don't mind having the force through the trees. If I'm made of rock, I should be able to go and just lay down on the ground next to a cave entrance and no one should be able to see it.
Sure.
Like these are the things that I'm totally okay with, where it should help me represent. Again, I think this is that disconnect, right? A lot of 5th edition is more about what am I going to be able to do with it? Like what is it going to let me be able to do versus, what can I do with it? It doesn't, it's more, it's just like, this is what you can use. This is the ability, but otherwise, why am I using this? There doesn't seem to be a lot of narrative purposes, and I don't really even see a huge, like game benefit to it.
Okay.
Like I just need a little bit more, just a little bit more to make me feel like I'm actually something other than a Warforged, and other than just another character who got a few spells a little.
Yeah.
But overall, I do like it. I do like the ideas of it. I think it has a lot of potential. So I think we'll just give it a 6.
Okay.
It's not terrible, and it's not imbalanced. There's nothing wrong with it. It's the lack of, as from a player mindset, there's just a lack of, what am I thinking of? Just the lack of like motivation,
attention grabbing, yeah.
I just, unless I'm really, really set on being a golem, I just don't know why I would choose that, because it doesn't seem to truly give me. Okay, that's what it is. It has fine mechanics, like it gives you okay stuff, but I can't see. Oh god damn it, brain! Why you just had it? Again, the mechanics are fine. I just don't see like the narrative motivation, I guess. Like in terms of playing the character, it doesn't add anything to the gameplay. Sure. It gives me a few good abilities, but it doesn't add anything to how I feel like I'm going to play the character, and that's kind of what I like to look for. Is it going to make me feel like I'm playing something different, or did I just get a different set of skills out of the game?
Right.
What's going on in chat? What have we missed? A glass golem with 1 HP and super high AC. That would be interesting.
Wild.
An animanium golem with great AC and immunity to crits, but 10-foot movement speed and probably can't go upstairs or swim or fly even with magic. Just being so heavy.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Man, so you know how like you get like how many attacks per round? Imagine that this thing only gets 1 attack every 2 rounds. It's just, but it like has a 50% chance to crit.
Oh.
So it's like you only attack once every other round, but when you hit something,
it's gonna smack.
It fucking sucks.
It's gonna smack.
I kind of like that. And then it's like the whole idea too is like you can't wield weapons, but you deal so much damage. It's like you are the weapon.
Oh, right.
You're the literal tank of the team. But if someone ever critted on you, yeah, I could see you shattering into glass. That would be interesting.
There's got to be some sort of like ritual to put you back together or something. That would suck.
Souls, it seems good, but could use more variations. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it could use more variants, and I just want the variants themselves to make me feel like I'm playing something different. I want the character to actually like operate differently, whereas I feel like this is just more focused on what I can get.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, I would say that I kind of agree with Hoylepa too, that you want to walk a fine line with not making this basically just another Warforged.
Yes.
Like you really want to lean it more into, again, that's why I want to know what I'm made out of, because I want to lean into it. I want to lean into what I'm made out of to not just feel like a construct, but I am a construct. I'm something more than just that title. I'm not just that category, but I want to know what that means to me.
Yeah.
Like I like the idea that, if you're wood, you can easily swim. Or if you're wood, you can swim, but you can't dive. you can only float. If you're rock, you can't swim, but you can walk underwater, and you won't get carried away by the
Interesting.
the tide,
current.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe if you're mud, you can't go in water. Like,
Okay.
because you'll like dissolve or whatever, or water actually hurts you. But imagine fire just slows you down. Because if you're clay, clay or mud, it
Right.
hardens you.
Mhm.
So maybe fire just slows you, doesn't hurt you, but maybe if you're like on fire or near fire, it actually just like cuts your movement in half.
Interesting.
So there's so many
not mad at
different
that.
there's so many different variations you can do. Like I think Soul said something like sand, or glass, adamantium, foliage, silver. Like a sand golem, being able to again, like, what else could, like, having that, interesting, having them be vulnerable to lightning damage.
Or like if you get hit with like lightning damage, you like lose a turn or something like that.
Yeah, because you have to regain part of what you lost. So yeah, there's so many variants that you could have a lot of fun with, and just tweak it again, just so that the gameplay and the experience is good, right? Because that's the thing, is I think that's the word I was looking for earlier, is experience. It's like the mechanics and the tools that I'm getting from choosing these classes are fine, but I'm not seeing the experience that I'm supposed to get.
Sure.
But I do like the idea. The more variants you get, the more you can play around with pros and cons of each one. Because I like the idea of, like, because especially since they're all part of the same race, what's fun about it is if you plan out enough races, kind of like what I was just saying about the swimming part, you could choose one ability that you think one should have, like as a pro, and then you could discuss like the cons of the other races. So it's not so much a balancing act with itself, but it's a balancing act across options. Like, if you want to be able to swim, but you choose wood, that means you can't go underwater. You could swim, you could float, excuse me,
Bless.
but you wouldn't be able to dive. Whereas the rock golem could just never swim. The moment you're in water, you sink. Sucks to be you.
Interesting.
You don't have to breathe, so it's not that big of a deal. But if you're ever on a boat and you fall over in the middle of a lake or the ocean, bye. But
unless you have somebody who has the ability to cast water walk on you or something like that.
Yeah, you'd have to go like that extra mile, right? And then the different, so the more you play with, the more you can kind of see those interlacings and start to connect those dots, right? One could have a pro, but it's directly tied to another one's pawn, and then vice versa.
Right. Very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I really like it. So I think a 6 out of 10 is fine. I think it has a lot of potential. I think it's well done. I think it just could use more. Like I said, it by itself isn't bad. I think it can be picked up by anybody and used. I just don't know if anybody would want to.
Sure.
As is. I just think it could be more enticing.
I get that. I do.
Soul says that for the wood golem, at a sub race that's specifically Feywild woods instead of mortal plane woods. I could see that. Like again, if you really wanted to get crafty with it, so you could get like a Feywood golem, or you could pull from a couple different places, like anywhere that D&D has shown to have different properties. You could start to divide that up as well.
Yeah, like Shadowfell, the Feywild, the Underdark.
An Underdark golem.
Yeah. You can do a lot of cool stuff. I'm here for that.
Oh, interesting. If you can make a golem grow, like if you could like tie it into somehow they would grow to like different size categories.
Okay.
That would be interesting.
Very interesting. Almost like enlarge reduce, but
it's almost like you'd have to like figure out a way to like be able to consume parts of your own material. Until you could like accumulate enough to grow into a different size.
Okay. I could totally see that.
That would be interesting. I don't know how you would do that. It'd be much more roleplay based than anything else.
Yeah.
I don't think you could be able to do that just by happenstance or by making easy rules. Because I feel like if there were enough rules to it, then people would find a way to spam it.
Yeah.
And if it weren't spammable, then it's just going to have to be on a time clock, whether it's by level or by age. It's just going to have to be this idea that you're doing it in the background. Because if you can do it intentionally, people are just going to spam it until they have the best option.
That's fair.
So how would a golem from the elemental planes work? Say a fire plane golem being made of magma stone. Yeah. So I would say again, you could eat as long as you had an understanding of the properties, right? So if like magma stone, right? So you're thinking that this thing is obviously immune to fire. So that's, whatever. But you would definitely want to say that like, water would damage it and slow it. So if it's completely submerged in water, like if it's completely submerged in water, it has like 5 feet of movement. So it's basically just trudging along.
It's gonna be down there for a minute.
If it's only partially wet, it gets half speed.
So
and as long as it's wet, at least when water touches it, it takes damage, and then
because then you could make the control the shaped water cantrip be way more powerful.
Or
you just throw some water on him.
What about because like you think about it's magma, right? So the water's just gonna steam off, right? So I'm wondering if it's not ongoing damage because it wouldn't really like stay wet unless it's submerged. But I'm wondering if like for a time being, like if it gets water damage, like water like reduces its like maximum hit points for until it can like short rest basically until it can like reheat back up to normal.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think of like different ways that I could play with it. I do like the idea of at least it getting slowed by water, and if it's fully submerged, it's 5 feet of movement per round. I like that. And then outside of that, it would probably have like, for anything it would probably have like an innate version of like heat metal, but for physical touch.
Right.
So its physical touch probably has the same property as heat metal. And the same thing with like wood. If it holds wood for X number of rounds, the wood lights on fire. And just like if it holds metal for long enough, the metal would heat up.
Okay.
But this also means that you would have to have a point to where the metal would melt.
Sure.
So like maybe after 6 rounds. So giving the golem weapons is probably a no-go.
Right.
It will hold on to the sword for maybe 3 rounds, and then it starts to melt and becomes unusable. It can't wear armor, right? So using Soul's specific idea of this fire plane magma stone golem can't wear armor, can't wield a weapon for longer than so many rounds before it melts, has innate heat metal by physical touch, can burn wood by physical touch.
What would the weapon have to be made out of them for them to be able to wield it if they wanted to wield something?
If D&D has a non-meltable, like maybe antimantium, maybe, or something from their plane of existence, obsidian.
What if it was a stone weapon? Theoretically.
Yeah, if it's a certain type of stone, it's magma, so I'm thinking it is melting stone. It's hot enough to melt stone. But I can understand, like, again, you could say just one of the rare things like obsidian, onyx, adamantium. So just give it some like kind of thing where yes, you'd eventually want it to upgrade to be able to carry one. But again, for a race, I do think that it would be powerful, but it would also have to be like, limited in what it can actually do.
Right. Especially if you're getting immunity out the gate to anything.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's especially at level 1, having some sort of immunity. Like you can get resistance to stuff, being like Dragonborn, but being like fully immune to a certain element.
Yeah.
I mean, if you give an immunity, then I think you need to at least give vulnerability to something.
Well, that's where like cold, cold. That's why I like the idea of like any kind of cold or wet, which would definitely slow you as well as like hurt you. like bring you down. So yeah, there's a couple different things that you could do. Like you could have like a pro con. You give off 10 feet of warmth, or like at 10 feet you have a comfortable warmth, as in like your party doesn't need to like have a fire if it's cold nearby.
Oh, and imagine that works with your Sentry's Rest. So you're like the little campfire for everybody, so they all just huddle around you.
But here's the con. That's at 10 feet. At 5 feet, people after like 1 round or 2 rounds, people will start to take damage if they're next to you for too long. So your party can't even hang out next to you.
I like after a minute because
the minute's fine. Like a fireplace, like
exactly.
sit next to a fire.
Because then you can't use it in combat.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to just sit there next to the enemy and just burn them. But I'm just thinking like that's the idea is like the party, you can't wear shit, you can't carry shit, you can't ever be on the wagon. If it's cold, you're slow as fuck. If it's wet, you're slow as fuck. And the party can't get near you. You can't go into any buildings. You know what I mean? Like the role play of a magma stone golem
Imagine
would
you go
be
into
insane.
like a bar and like sit down on a chair and it just starts lighting on fire.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, like anything that you touch after a certain amount of time. So it would be a very interesting option, I think. You can make it as temporary HP that you gain through preparations. That's interesting. Okay. I think that was for the level up. Oh yeah, for like the growing. If it's submerged in water, would it become an obsidian golem? No, because I figure like it's being heated internally, so I just figure like it moves hella slow and like maybe can't make attacks because it's literally like all of its joints are like basically congealed, and only when it gets out of water does it like, you know, it'll start to reheat,
Right.
and then like it'll get its movement back and stuff. But I would still say like it's gonna take a while, maybe a short rest for it to like come back to full.
Yeah. I could get behind that.
Interesting. Yeah, I like the idea of golems. I think more can be done with golems. I haven't really thought about golems as a playable race before. I've just kind of thought of them as, you know, tools.
I do kind of like trying to bring more things into playable races, you know, because anything that has the ability to have like intelligence, I think should theoretically have the ability to be played, right? Because they have the opportunity to think and to choose and to choose a path that's better than what their species supposedly innately does, right? So they don't all have to be just bad, you know. So giving it a chance for players to like explore what that looks like, I think is very cool. So I like these races.
Yeah, and here's an idea. So you were talking earlier about how would you make it like a race of these things work? Like, what if you had in your, you know, again, another alternative way that you could do this? Like a high point would probably be more or less like, you know, the war situation. But what if you had a deity of golems, or like a deity of constructs, or a deity that, you know, like almost basically the deity of like hoarding, in the sense that they don't like anything that was made to go to waste.
Mhm.
That concept. So what if you had this deity in your realm, and the way that you justified these, the way that you put golem races in your world, is that whenever a golem was created and then destroyed, the goddess, or like, you know, the god of the deity of golems was like, oh, but I don't want you to go to waste. You are such a good creation. There's no sense in you going to waste without having your own chance. So what
Okay.
if there's a deity in your realm that just whenever an actual made construct like gets destroyed, they take that energy and go, here's your new chance, and they just pop it into a new golem body and say, now you're free to have an actual chance at life.
Okay.
You were created, now here. So just that's another way that you could write it in, where these are literally just a reincarnated previous golem, but there's some malevolent force out there, whether it's a deity,
the
a
goddess
lich.
of Gollum reincarnation or some kind of shit. That
Yeah.
would be wild. Okay.
Or you could just say, even if you didn't want to make it like a goddess, you could just say that if you have the idea that, you know, energy isn't created or destroyed, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times most spells just go back into pure energy, but maybe golems are different in your world. And so maybe golems have a weird energy. So whenever a golem is destroyed, its energy has to go somewhere. So maybe that's what happens. Is it just, you could just, again, without a deity, you could just say that golems self-reincarnate.
So would you say that's almost like their own version of a mantle? Like that power needs to be.
Yeah, you could say,
know.
yeah, if you wanted to go that route. I'm just trying to think of like other ways that you could justify why someone would like become one that's not like in control.
Sure.
You know, unless you wanted to write into their backstory that they were someone's golem that gained sentience and then broke free. Maybe you could just have it in your backstory that your master created you and then set you free. Like, I created you to be sentient.
Right.
Or again, just other ways of just saying, like, when other golems are destroyed, new golems are created in a free form.
Theoretically, there is a flesh golem. So would you call something like Frankenstein a golem?
Yes.
Okay.
Frankenstein is a golem.
Right. So even though it's flesh, would it still be considered a construct?
So yes, because I've heard arguments about whether or not he's undead or not, but he's definitely a construct because he was forged together, and he's not completely biological.
Sure.
And the method that was part of his creation, whether you call it science or magic or whatever, was the purpose of infusing an inanimated body and reanimating it with a new intelligence versus an undead, which is reanimating a dead corpse with no intelligence. And it's just all the same exact corpse. But with Frankenstein, it is more of a construct. It was more put together, preserved pieces.
Right.
And it was for the intent of reanimating the body for the purposes of individual intelligence.
Got you.
And so that's kind of where I say, like, at least with the golem, again, a golem is something that can take orders, but it's not as lifeless and mindless as raised dead.
Yes.
And the raised dead usually have their own bodies. Like, at least it's the body that you raise.
Yes.
Whereas
Instead of
in
the
golems,
crafted.
you usually craft it in some way. And that's why I classify Frankenstein as a construct.
Okay.
Personally.
That's fair enough. I like that. I do like that.
The good race definitely needs a little touch up, more details for sub races, more variants. Besides that, yeah, I definitely would like to play as a golem. I think the idea of play, I want to think about this more for high point purposes.
Sure.
I think I could tweak a way to make golems. I think for me, it would be less of a, this is a race you're regularly going to run into, and more of a per situation. I could see someone who wants to play this. It would be more of like, okay, let's work this in your backstory. How do you think you became a sentient, free-willed golem?
And
instead
maybe
of
that's
just a whatever.
Dez didn't put lore behind it. So, and maybe you could have put like, general lore and say like golems are for all different types of reasons. And you work it out with your DM, but maybe that was the intent, is to have it be a little bit more free from that perspective.
And that's true too. And that's kind of where I think I would go with it. It's for me, if I added these in, I would love to have it as a playable race, but not so much a full on, they're just a living race. I think it would be more of an individualized situation where you were a golem and now you're not.
Got you.
Or you're still a golem, but you were a creation and now you're free.
And now you're almost like a genie. You were a slave and now you're free type deal.
That's probably how I would run it in the long run, because I feel like that would be easier, be more enriching to the backstory, and it would just make more sense. It's because it feels so detached if you're just like, oh yeah, I'm a golem. I was born this way. No big deal. Nothing special. Like, it feels so detached versus I don't know. I woke up in a cave one day. I woke up in a dark cave. I saw a bunch of like rocks that looked like me lying about the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then I walked out of this it took me a couple days to find my way out of this dark cave. I kept coming across like piles of rocks that looked exactly like me. And then you finally leave and you're like, again, so imagine just like something happened and you're just one of 1,000, rock golem slaves that you're the only one that survived whatever happened to your master. And that's it. Like you just don't even have to tell them. You're just like, you just walk out of this cave, you see what look like bodies like you, and start gaming. And then you just never know. And maybe there's like lore about,
maybe that's what you're trying to do, is trying to figure out, where you came from, who your master was, all that stuff.
Right. And then there could just be like some crazy thing, like he was like mining for something and then someone went after him. And so his like, his power faded, but somehow instead of everything going down, all of the constructs faded into you for whatever reason. Like you were the only one sleeping at the time. And so when all the constructs went down, all their power went to the nearest vessel, which was you. So when you woke back up, you had the consciousness because you had the power of all of them. Like there's so many different and unique ways to build that story that's more than just, well, I've just always been a construct.
Yeah.
Can I move on? Like, you know what I mean? Like I want to feel, but you know what I mean? Like I want to understand the motivations behind my character. I want to understand what their situation is. And that's kind of like why I would feel an individualized story for a golem is much more fun and enriching than just saying that, yeah, people can be golems because they're around.
Right.
All right. Well, We did not get to see Dez, unfortunately, but I'm sure they will log in and see it. So Dez, if you see this in the future, hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you can take it and work with it. Let us know if you do any updates. But otherwise, what is Dez's average now?
Dez's average is a 6.
Wow.
Is a
Okay.
6.
Got a
So
6.
They've
Six.
they've actually had a lot of high reviews. They've got some 8s and some 9s. You know, the first couple I think was like a 5 and a 6 as well. So it's hovered right around like the above average set. So you know, it's not bad at all. It's
Nice.
not bad at all.
And what do we got for next Monday?
Next Monday, let's take a gander. Let's see. So we just did a Dez. So we have another submission by Hecate coming up next.
Ooh.
Now, I haven't quite decided yet if I want to move up the samurai class.
Ooh.
Because they did submit that. I personally really want to, but I know that we want to decide how we want to actually review that, because it's going to come with 3 subclasses.
That's
It's going to come with a main
right.
class, 3 subclasses. So we can do the main class in one subclass and then like do the other 2 on different days or something like that.
I think that's what we'll most likely end up doing, just to help spread it out a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think that next week I might do one of their creatures from their snow category. So we did their snow serpent earlier.
Gotcha.
And they have another one. I'm thinking these 2 can go together. They are theoretically 2 different creatures. One is a frost moth and one is a frost moth queen. So I'll leave that up to you whether you want to review both of those in the same day, or if you want to just do one. And
If
I feel
you
like
can
it'll be
get
similar
Hecate,
enough.
if you can hit, yeah, it feels like, I mean, especially if Hecate can confirm that it's like an evolution, like they are meant to like be found together, kind of like with sub races. I don't mind looking at them together because it's kind of the same thing.
Sure,
It's
sure.
like 2 different sub races of the same thing. I could see that. Yeah, I don't mind looking at them because it might give us a bigger picture of the creature itself. You know what I mean? Like the 2 versions of it.
Sure.
And that can be an overall review of it. So yeah, we can do that. Kind of like this one, we can kind of lump it together.
Right.
So if we want to do that one, and then we can do the samurai, that'd be fine.
Definitely. So I'll look into that and I'll post that pretty soon so we can see in our schedule which one's coming up next. But
And maybe what we can do for the samurai ones is, because there's subclasses, what we can do is, the first episode we'll review the whole main class and then the first subclass, because technically we review subclasses, right? So what we can do is read through the main class, give our feedback for it, but then we review the subclass based off of the main class.
and that's what'll get the score.
And then that gets the score, and then the other subclasses will get the score based on more on how do they reflect the main class. Because again, we can rate the main class itself, but it's more about the subclasses and how they reflect and build off of. So
Correct.
that's probably how the best way we'll do that. And then as for this Friday, I don't know if I want to do more high point histories or if I want to actually do a structured topic yet. So I'm gonna keep that one open.
Okay. This is not confirmed yet. I know I already told you that
31st?
The 31st I won't be available,
Next
but
Friday.
I also might not be available this Friday.
Okay.
Sadly. So I will get back to you before the week is out to confirm, but yeah.
Yeah, cool. So we will get back to you guys on this Friday and next Friday. Are you like just not in? Are you going to be remote? Or are you just not going to be available?
I
at all?
likely will not be in. There might be a family day going on
Cool.
with my lady that
All right.
weekend.
I'll be flying solo, no big deal. And we are still figuring out how to do you and Hecate's side-by-side creation. So we haven't discussed that yet. We probably will figure that out after this Sunday's stream.
True.
Because I'm prepping for that one right now. And then after that, we'll probably figure out what we're going to do with your guys' side-by-side. Yeah, I think that's everything. God, so tired.
I feel you, bro. No worries.
All right, so yeah, we will get back to you probably after this next Sunday stream, just so once we get that done, we'll get back to you guys. I still, because I had such a busy weekend, I still haven't gotten the polls out for the community stream. So I will work on getting those out this week, so the community can vote on next month's community stream, and then hopefully by the 1st, we will let everybody know when that will happen, and then we'll have an update for that. All right, y'all. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for the review. Hopefully, Des, you enjoyed the review.
Definitely let us know what you think for sure.
Oh, okay. Souls is 2024 base, but we're not sure about Hecate. So if we'll have to circle back for their side by side.
Oh, okay.
So at least one of them is
you.
2024. So maybe you want to check with Hecate.
Okay.
Just to see if there's, because that'll matter. You know, that'll definitely matter for the review. So we'll keep that in mind.
Okay.
But otherwise,
because usually when we go over the base class, we go over that base class in
2024 or
so
2014. Yeah.
So I can pull up the 2024 version of that. So that shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, no big deal. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for chatting, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed the review. We will be back on Friday as normal at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for more D&D content, and we will be back next Monday for more review. I will be here at least this Friday. Maybe Kage, maybe not. We will let you guys know. And more polls for next month's community stream coming soon. And again, not this coming Sunday, we will be doing a extra stream in the tavern. So be here for that.
Very cool. With another special guest.
Yes, with another special guest. So stay tuned. Hope you guys had a fantastic weekend, and I hope you have a good week ahead of you. Cheers.
Deuces.